Hi, and good evening. I'm Alice, and a few hours ago, the Automatons update for Space Engineers was finally released after months and months of waiting. We did get the beta in February, but now we have all the new content on our hands. And with it has come some nice new features, and not to mention blocks, which we will be having a look at today. This will be a quick overview of the new blocks, as I will do more in-depth looks into the new AI blocks, event controller, and so on, as it is very comprehensive. But for now, let's get right to it. And we will be starting off with the new helmet skin that you get with the Automatons DLC. Now, it does look quite fancy, very drone-esque, and unfortunately you cannot change the red and blue color on the helmet visor, only the white parts that surround them. Now, what I am standing on as well, and what the entire platform is made out of, is the new plastic armor skin, which does, I have to say, look quite nice. It looks industrial, looks very modern, very drone-esque. And to start off with then, we can see the effects that it has on some of the light and heavy armor blocks, with the light being along the top and the heavy being along the bottom. But anyhow, let's get on to the more interesting things, and what we will start with are the Willis Ducts. Now, they come in a large variety, but the one thing to note at first is that, one, you have to crouch in order to walk through, which would be fairly obvious given the height, but also, keen being keen, they made it so that you are unable to enter the Willis Ducts through a half block. So you cannot place a half block next to the Willis Duct and expect to be able to enter it. That goes for all of them. Now, you have various variants, with these two being the most standard, and the only difference from what I could tell being the grate that is along the top. Next, you have the Willis Ducts, which has 4 different lights in each corner. Looks very nice. Then you have the corner section, which has a little grate with some tubes and pipes running underneath it. You have a T-junction, and then a full-on 4-way junction. And then you also have a ramp, which does work quite nicely. And then you have the Willis Duct grate. Now, some may think that this would be able to act as a door. Unfortunately, it is not. So it is only a cosmetic piece to cap off the Willis Ducts. But honestly, it still looks quite nice. Now, next up will be the access panels. Now, the reason why we have these yellow and black stripes in front is that I'm using that to mark the paid content. So all of these access ports are paid. But having a look at the very first one, we can see it has 3 different main sections, and upon opening the panel you get a control panel inside. Very nice. On the second one, you're able to open, once again, another panel, with it having a similar layout to the first one. But here there are no access ports, so this looks to be a purely cosmetic piece. Third one is a much smaller variant that has an actual button that you can configure in order to be able to use. And then lastly, you have an access port that you can open with 2 doors. Looks really nice. So what I just noticed is that there does exist small grid variants of the various access panels, with the very first one, corresponding with the one behind it, being a 2x2 block variant. Now, on this one, there are no access points compared to its larger brother, and I just noticed it is upside down. Moving on, you have the second one, which is a 1x1 in terms of size, and comes with no access point either, which does correspond with its bigger brother behind it. The third one comes, oh, it's a bunch of switches. But unfortunately, compared to its large block brother, you cannot interact with it in any form of way other than opening the door, with it taking up a 2x1 in terms of space. But with the access panel number 4, you can still open it up just like you can with the other one. If we move on to the end of the line here, we get to what the update was really about, the new AI blocks. Now you have the small and the large varieties, with 2 of them being marked in the very front with front. And all of the blocks are fairly similar in terms of their aesthetic, with the main difference being the logos that are on the side to distinguish the various different blocks, as well as having a little icon saying left and right on the 2 blocks where it matters. Then you have the smaller variants. Now these look quite nice. They look very fancy, very industrial. You can even see like heat pipes going through. It's reminds me of a PC. They look really nice, and Kina's done a good job on the visual aspect of them. Again, I will go much more in-depth into these various blocks in a different video, as I'm not sure how much they've changed since the beta, but we will still have a look at them either way to see what you can do. Now next up come warning signs. They have added a lot of different warning signs with this one. For example, the offers change over time, a trading sign, hazardous environment, airlock mechanism, 0G zone, construction site, no atmosphere beyond this point, a landing area, ships or drones, as well as some medical rooms, authorized personnel, and a bunch of other ones. Even a 0 days without a clang accident sign, and not to mention a automated turret sign, which is really nice. They also come in the small block format, albeit they do look pretty much the same, just in a smaller format, which is really nice, with some of them having a slight difference to them, like the authorized personnel sign, but that looks to be, yeah, and then the no access sign. Moving on from the signs, we get to the event controller, another big part of the Automatons update. Now, there isn't too much to look at on the side, but in the very front, this is a pure server rack, tech heaven. Now with the event controller come a lot of different events and settings with all sorts of different parameters and a bunch of functions, which we will again go more in depth to in another video. But this is really exciting. They have a lot of options, with some options being able to be mixed and everything. It is absolutely fantastic. Now next are the new vent blocks, which we both get a full vent and a half vent variant of, which do look quite nice. They even have animation, so that is great to see. It's good to see more animated blocks. And yeah, they just overall look real nice. And at the same time, we have finally gotten a full block air vent, which have conveyor ports on all sides. So that is a very nice addition. Thank you, Keen, for finally bringing this in. Now you may see that there's a Gatling turret here, which isn't strictly new. But what is new is the new overlay that is added with the Gatling turret. With it, down at the very bottom, you can see a small orientation compass, which changes color depending on the orientation that the turret is in, with the green being directly forward and the red being directly behind it. There is also a ammo counter on the side, so you can actually see how much ammo is remaining in the turret, and not to mention how much ammo is in the inventory of the grid that you're in. So if I were to get some Gatling ammo boxes and shove them right in, we would be able to see that we have 2,100 rounds available in the inventory, which is a real nice addition. Now this does go for all of the turrets, whilst we're on the topic of weapons, this is a small change that they made, but they finally categorized the different weapons to be able to find them more easily in both the block menu as well as the crafting menu. And they have also renamed the missile turret to rocket turret and the missile launcher to rocket launcher. So that is a nice addition, so now you can finally find all the various weapons a lot more easily. Moving on, we are now at the conveyor caps. Now, unlike the access panels, these are unable to be opened because, well, they are conveyor caps. So, first of all, we have the pipe cap, which has been added to the heavy industries. I think it was the heavy industries? Yes, which has been added to the heavy industries DLC. So you need to have the heavy industries DLC in order to be able to obtain that. The rest of the conveyor caps, though, are completely free with the new update, with the large block and small grid variant respectively, and then a additional pure small grid variant, which all of them look real nice. And finally, you can start covering up your conveyor ports with these instead of piston heads, if that is what you prefer. Moving on, we have the new interior pieces, being the angled interior walls. Now, these do add a great variety of detail, and they do join up nicely with half blocks, which is very nice compared to the Willis Ducts. And they just overall look quite nice. Now, in addition to the new interior blocks, you have the pipework blocks, which add a variety of different pipes in both a open and closed format, which overall, it is great to see more cosmetic blocks. Unfortunately, they have no form of use, but it is still very nice to see Keen adding more customizability to the block roster. So moving on, we come to the emotion controller. This one is quite interesting because it is a full-on block, both large and small grid variant, and it is essentially a large LCD where you can display text and whatnot, as we can see with the face here being very confused as to why there is text in the top left corner. But essentially, this LCD acts as a completely normal LCD, with you being able to display all the various images that you can on a normal LCD. So it is nice to see this functionality being added in, as well as the new faces, which come in a large variety, with you having everything from angry to annoyed to love, or a bit of a neutral face. Maybe you're a bit sad that we didn't get 4x4 wheels this update, or maybe you're skeptical to when we will get such a thing. Or perhaps you're a little sus. Either way, it is a very cool addition, and I believe you will be able to configure this up with the event controller as well, which would be great to see. As a little note, I just checked, and although the emotional controller acts like an LCD, you cannot get the new faces on a just plain old normal LCD. So those are exclusive to the emotion controller, whilst all the LCD's features are available. Now, these two are not strictly new, but at least the little one has been changed to be able to act similarly to its larger brother. That is right, the ejector is no more, and instead we have the small connector. This does only exist in the small grid variety, but finally you can make even more compact designs without needing to have that large connector attached if you wish to charge or transfer smaller items, which is really good to see. Moving on, we have the brand new sensors and camera, which work just like normal sensors and cameras, but they do look a lot fancier compared to their normal variant. And with the camera, of course, having the added functionality that it can be placed on top of blocks and still being able to look forward compared to the normal camera. They are pretty much the same size between large grid and small grid, so no difference there. Moving on, we also have a updated timer block, which is a very welcome addition compared to the standard timer block that we have been dealing with for a long time now. This one looking a lot fancier, looking way more sophisticated and more in line with the more advanced blocks that we've been getting both this update, but also through the previous past updates, with both the large and small variant looking highly detailed and overall just looking very nice. Now, small grid builders rejoice, for we have two new cockpits, the saddle cockpit and the compact saddle cockpit. The main difference is that the compact saddle cockpit is 2 blocks in width compared to the normal one's 3 blocks. However, that does mean you do not get any form of conveyor porting. So the normal saddle cockpit does have a conveyor on the bottom as well as the front and back for all of those conveyor needs. Moving on, it is time to move away from the old and onwards to the new. This is the new Programmable Lock that comes with the Automatons DLC. Now this is pure tech heaven, similar to some of the other blocks that we've been getting this update. It does have a similar style to the locker and is completely compatible with those sets of blocks, but once again not compatible with the half blocks. And then of course we have the small grid variant, which looks really nice and is quite similar to the normal small grid programmable lock. However, instead of, being on a little pillar, it is now completely filled in. So more attachment points, rejoice. Moving on, we have the new Inset Light. Now builders, rejoice, for you can finally have lights in your builds without taking up that precious block of space. Now with the Inset Light, we can see some nice detailing, and with it actually being inset into the block itself, and with a lot of great detailing all around. So even if you don't use the lights, there are a lot of potential with this block. Now the same goes for the small grid counterpart. Now this, once again, is with the Automatons DLC. Would have liked to see it make it into the base game for free, but at least we are getting it. Now once again, this one, the custom turret controller, is not new, but one of its new functions are, which is, that is right, it is able to finally track the sun. So those who want to build solar arrays, rejoice, for you can finally track the sun. Now it does update pretty quickly, and you will need a camera in the direction that you want the solar panels to point. However, it is fairly accurate, and even when it becomes night, it does also try to follow the sun. So it can be a bit wonky. Moving on to some of the last pieces, we have the centered armor panels. That is right, you can finally center those wonderful armor panels in the middle of blocks. Now we did only get 2 of the armor panels being able to be centered. Once again, would have liked to see more, but at least we got 2 of them in both their light and heavy armor variety. Now if you looked in the corner of my eye, you could see something small over there. That is right, they have added a new plushie, which both looks adorable and horrifying. Now compared to the old plushie, they take up pretty much the same amount of space, and the components for these plushies you can actually get in the unknown signal drop pods that can spawn around in survival. So finally, you can get a plushie quite easily. Although, I'm not sure you want to have too many of this one. Could be a bit freaky. Now, for the last block that has been added is the 2x2 wheels. A very requested feature that has finally made it into the game, where we have both the normal variants and the off-road variants, with the off-road variant having been added to its DLC respectively. But that is everything. Overall, a pretty good block roster, a lot of paid for blocks, but we still got a fairly nice roster of blocks. And with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.